continuation and nearly a culmination of the laws of Ahavas Chesed, or not so much the laws of it, really how to best express those feelings we have towards others. We're continuing our discussion of Hachnasus Orchim, of how to best treat guests. And from last week, we talked quite a bit about what the mitzvah is, and how this is something that can be done not necessarily with your money, but with what is done with your own person. And these are the continuations of how to best treat people. And we talked about how you should make them feel welcome and feed them. You shouldn't, as with every other mitzvah, this one especially, you should not be doing it with a nasty face on. You should be doing this cheerfully, and don't make them feel bad. Those are all really important things to consider. So now we're going to talk about how you best conduct yourself with them. So we see how much time and effort the Torah put into discussing the welcoming of guests by Avraham Avinu. So we see that in Parshas Vayera. We mentioned in the middle of it, but all these little things. Okay, we don't find any other part in the Torah where they talk about how to welcome guests, and that Avraham Avinu did it in such an important way. Okay, we say especially that the reason why this is important, that Avraham fulfilled the entire Torah. We're not going to dwell on that point. But it's important to note that that's the framework which the Chafetz Chaim is working with. That the Midrash says that Avraham kept the whole Torah, because the pasuk says, "Ekev asher shama Avraham b'koli." God says, "How could I not tell the story of what I'm about to do to Sodom?" To Avraham, he listens to everything I tell him. He keeps everything. And when it comes to welcoming guests, hey, that's one of the mitzvahs, right? We say that when you're going along your way, v'halachta b'derachav, you walk in God's ways, just like God does chesed for people traveling and does things to make sure their trip is safe. Therefore, the Torah took time out to explain what this looks like. Okay, what we see from here is that the Torah wants to teach you from Avraham Avinu how to conduct yourself with guests. That's why it went out of its way to discuss that. And it's also, he doesn't say this, that's why I went out of his way to discuss the story by Lavan and Rachel and Leah and all those other things, and Rivka, why those cases were all important, about what to do and what not to do. Okay, so for example, by Rivka, we found that she did a lot of chesed. That was important to know that. So the important thing to recognize over here is that Abraham was quite ill from the mitzvah of Milah that happened at the end of the previous parsha, and nonetheless, he was still looking for guests at the hottest part of the day, because he thought he would see somebody, and he wanted to make sure that he did them some favors and did some pleasantries. And when he saw them, okay, he ran to them, he prostrated himself to the ground, and he spoke nice to them. Hey, want to come visit? We'll have some chips, we'll have some salsa. No, he gave them tongue and mustard and all other things, right? Nowadays, maybe chips and salsa. Maybe something to drink, right? That's what it was. So that was the main thing, is to make them feel cared for and loved. Okay, that was the main thing that Abraham was going for. And then, that he didn't only bring them water to drink, we also wanted to help them wash up a little bit. Specifically, he washed their feet. On a very basic level, that it sounds like he's washing their feet to get them clean from, the stuff you encounter while walking. Okay, so that's why he said wash your feet. Okay, and so therefore, that's why you have to make sure that you not only show your guests where they have something to eat and drink, but also show them to where the restroom is, give them towels, give them possibly soap nowadays, all these things. Okay, and after that, after he helped them make them feel comfortable, then he said, okay, I'm gonna get you something to eat. Okay, so get them comfortable first is what is the first important thing. Okay, so that's number one. I've actually, on side note, some people actually do this on Erev Shabbos. They have guests Friday night. Is before they go to the table, is they should sit in the living room and welcome their guests, and then give a moment to kind of prepare the meal in the house. That way they can kind of, you went to shul, you walk back from shul, allow them to rest a little bit. That's where I've seen a custom like that. However, the Shulchan Aruch brings down that one should on Friday night preferably walk straight to the table, even if you have guests, and say Kiddush immediately. So, not that that's a bad thing. When most people often have guests on Shabbos, the best way to do this mitzvah is to have people kind of like chill out, relax a little bit. So Shabbos day, you should definitely do that. Have them come, make themselves comfortable, show them where things are. And the other thing that Avraham Avinu thought about is they didn't want to stay for a long time. They didn't want to make him do a lot of stuff for them. So they just said very simply, hey, I'm just going to take a little bit of bread and then I'm going to move on. Okay? So he says, okay, I'm just going to give you a little bit. I'll just give you a little bit. Just rest for a minute, refresh, and then you can be on your way. And then boom, he has a big meal. Right? Because that's what we say, that's what we say in Pirkei Avos, that emor me'at v'aseh harbeh, say little and do much, is one of the attributes, the personality traits of Abraham that we should all try to exemplify. And the way he makes the meal also, the Chafetz Chaim continues. He says, he really hurried. He brought the finest stuff to them. Whatever he prepared first, he brought it out to them, and he himself stood there and served them as well. And then when they left, he walked them out a little bit. And from here, we see this is what you should do for your own guests, just from what Avraham Avinu does to the angels that are visiting him. If you can't do everything, do what you can. And if you can learn one thing, it's that you should teach your children this is an important mitzvah to do. Okay, and he says that's why he says over there that he gave for his children to do. Rashi says, and he was trying to teach Ishmael to actually learn how to be a good host as well. And in fact, I've seen later commentaries say that's why in Arab communities even today, they're wonderful hosts. They will not harm you while they're in your home. But they say, from I've heard from a lot of Jews who lived in the area, is they will treat you wonderfully in their home, but don't turn your back to them on your way out. So in the home, great. Once you leave, all bets are off. So something too over here is that the Chafetz Chaim continues, is that when any guests come to your house, you should always receive them with a cheery face and always make sure to give them something to eat. And maybe they're poor and they haven't eaten in a while and they don't want to ask for it. And then, always make sure that you have a very pleasant countenance. Okay? Don't make them feel awkward or rejected. And even if you are yourself upset, you got to cover it for them. They don't need to know about it right now. And don't try to present yourself as something you're not, and they're presenting themselves as something they're not. Nonetheless, let them relax, help bring them down if they're in your home, help them feel good. So, and don't use this as an opportunity to trauma dump. Don't tell them about all of your worries today. Oh, you should hear about this, you should hear about that. Don't break their spirit. Tell them only nice things and let them hear nice things and let them not worry about how their day is going. So the Chafetz Chaim continues with a quote from the Zohar. The pasuk says, you have spread to Jacob your bread, which teaches us, the Zohar says, to cut up some bread for the guest. And that way they shouldn't feel bad about asking for it. And so too, you shouldn't watch them eat. If you just leave the food there and let them do that. And same thing too, give them a place maybe they could be in some privacy so they could lay down, whatever they need. Because it's so important that a tired person be allowed to rest. And so too, it's so important to them that you give them a little more time before even eating them. So a person should say to themselves privately, if I was staying somewhere, this is what I would want. I should do them what they want to do to me. So it's like a golden mean, just like the Rambam talks about in the Shemona Prakim, Pirkei Avos. The person should kind of feel that way. Whatever I want done for me, I should do for others. Take some classes in hosting. What would be appropriate for you? I saw somebody recently one time who was super impressed with. He stayed at a hotel, and this person, he's known for his pizza tasting reviews on YouTube. He's famous for that. So when the hotel greeted him, what did they greet him with? They greeted him with a little tiny miniature pizza and some small apples in a bowl, some bottled water, and a little bag of flour, which I thought the little bag of flour was hysterical. Everything was really very cute and petite. And he loved it, especially loved the little petite pizza. And so, of course, he said he raves about the hotel, says how nice the place is, and says, and look, they even know me so well. They left me a little tiny pizza. Things like that make all the difference. Now they've eaten. Okay, they had something to eat, and they drank, and now they want to leave. The next mitzvah you want to do here is you want to accompany them. And the rabbis in the Talmud Chazal, this is a Gemara in Sota 46b, really go to great lengths to explain how valuable this mitzvah is. There is a tremendous amount of reward for accompanying a traveler. Okay, there is no limit to what that's worth. Okay, and they also say about another pasuk is that in the case of where we find the corpse that is in between two cities, the case of the Egla Rufa, two cities arguing over, where did this person who died on the way come from? Everyone's saying, well, I've washed my hands of this. I did not my fault, because the person should be. Why is it so? Sorry, the Chafetz Chaim says, why should it be that the elders of the city and the court of the city take any responsibility for killing this person? Oh, because what happened was they never saw him, never knows him. They sent him away without any food, and they didn't give him anything. They didn't know who he was. That's why they have to in a sense expiate themselves for their lack of attention and attentiveness to people who are coming to their own town, their own city. And they should have made more. They should have made more of an effort to make sure that a person who comes along their way should feel that there's no chance that they will become injured in that city. Okay, and a person that they are accompanied into the city, even Arba Amos, they say, that person will be guaranteed to not feel like there's any challenge or calamity they will face on their path. Remember, he used to walk everywhere. and the word is that anyone who is not accompanying as they leave the city, it's like one is spilling blood for them. And you also compel people to accompany travelers, just like you compel people to give tzedakah. And so too, if the guest doesn't know the way very well, and so, there's lots of different ways they could possibly go, it's even more important to make sure they know where they need to get to go and to show them where to go. And mitzvah to draw a map for them, especially on Shabbos, you're not using your cell phone, you don't have where you're going. And to show them where exactly they need to go. And make sure that you have good directions, right? Go to the fig tree and make it right. Go to the apple tree and make it left, whatever it is. And a person should not get lost trying to find their way around the city. And the merit of the one who makes their time to accompany this traveler, their friend, and be their friend, in order to show them the right way, that they shouldn't stumble or fall or get lost, is so huge. Because this is the important part of the mitzvah of Levias Orchem, right? This is to make sure is that they don't do. Okay? Why? Because we say that we should, when you see this person, they quote this from Shoftim, from the very beginning, is that the people who guard the city would see someone approaching the city, and when you come in, we will do our best to take care of you. Okay, and we'll take care of them. And it also says, that that a person should make sure to see that a city does a lot of chesed. And another case is that in the case of when Sancheriv, the Assyrian general, tried to lay siege to one of the cities. Okay. And he was not able to do it. And then when Nebuchadnezzar tried to take Jerusalem and he couldn't. And and also there was the angel of death that struck him and his army. Okay, that he was not able to be successful, and those people in those cases they perished outside of the cities. Okay. And so, therefore, that's why it's so important that when you do these things, that this is why Hashem provides protection to cities themselves. Cities should feel like safe havens, because even the armies of great nations can't protect themselves from disease and pestilence and other such things, unless the protection comes from Hashem. It's also important to point out, the Chafetz Chaim continues, the main thing to do is to accompany somebody. So you only will expect to find these calamities when you don't do any accompaniment whatsoever. But there's no real length of time with which someone must accompany somebody else. So they talk about a case in the Talmud which gives you an idea about how far you have to accompany somebody. So it says that Ravina used to accompany Rava bar Yitzchak in the city. He'd walk Arba Amos, right? Take a few steps away from the front of his house. Okay, and the reason why he didn't walk him further is because Rava bar Yitzchak said, "You don't need to keep going with me." Okay. And so there's another thing too to talk about, which is when the Rambam says that one of the things they would set for the city is to have people watching the paths. When the paths aren't properly marked, then you have to have people who watch the paths and make sure people aren't out there getting lost, because they could be attacked by robbers and wild animals. But in places where they have paved roads and they're settled for the most part and they're signed properly, so you don't have to walk them as far. So, but the main thing is that something that he learns, the Chafetz Chaim says, from a sefer called Iyun Yaakov. Okay, he says, but this is only to teach us how important it is to make sure that we take care of people's walking areas, and the whole world benefits from this mitzvah. Because if you're not doing anyone any favors, you're not warning them about where to go and where not to go, you really have to make sure you take them almost as far as, even he says over here, Tchum Shabbos, as far as the very edges of what we could walk to on Shabbos, outside of the city. Okay? And a person should never feel that they are exempt from having to accompany somebody else. Because the Gemara itself says that this is something that is, a person who is leaving is meant to be accompanied, so that there shouldn't be anything that happens to them along the way. And also, that's the proper way to do this mitzvah. Okay, and he says that the Roshei Tevos are Ashel, Achila, Shtia, Levia. Okay. And so he tells a little story here. Interesting story here. So this story is interesting. All right. Should I read it? Yeah, let's do it. Okay. He said there's a story here. Stuff line. He says, okay, there's once happened that a certain homeowner brought in a guest, and a fire went and caught his house on fire, and everyone wondered, why didn't he have, the mitzvah of halva, levaya or levia, or he was doing a mitzvah that someone who does a mitzvah should be saved from all damages. We learned this a bunch of times. Okay, so why wasn't he prepared? Why wasn't he protected? Why didn't Hashem protect him and his guest? And then he says there was a certain very important person who gave the following answer. Why? He said because this person only liked to feed and entertain the guests in his home, but he didn't accompany them when they left. And what happens is that if you don't do all three, then all you're left with is Eish. You have Achila, Shtia, and not Levia, which is to say that's why he had Eish. So if he had Ashel, Achila, Shtia, and Levia, then it wouldn't have counted. Now, I think that's an unfortunate story, I don't think a person deserves a fire when they're doing a mitzvah, but that's what he's trying. That's something he tries to say. I hate stories like that because it makes it sound like the world is petty if you don't do the mitzvah 100%, and that's not really how it should be. That somehow that Hashem's world is built on this little pettiness of not doing mitzvahs correctly, and I don't think that's an appropriate message to send. But they like to send these messages anyway. So even though the mitzvah is to accompany him even a little bit, nonetheless, you need to actually make sure that they know where they're going. Okay, and so if you can tell them even their GPS coordinates or show them the signs, that suffices. So the Torah says even further that after the story of Avraham Avinu, it says Vayita Eshel be'er Shava, and Abraham plants this tree called the Eshel. Okay, I've just learned Eshel is short, an acronym for Achila, Shtiel, and Levia. And so Chavetz Chaim says there's a really good story in Ahavas Rabbi Nassan, where Avram Avinu, our father, built these very large rest houses on the local highways that people should be able to stay there, and he would leave food and drink there, and that's what it means that he planted an eshel, achila, shtiel, and levia. Right, that's the way it should happen. And the Gemara in Sota says the same thing, that a person should be able to learn from Avraham Avinu that you should leave a room that guests should be able to use. Okay, and that's how you're going to be able to fulfill this mitzvah properly. And other people say that eshel is not just for levia, but also lena, that you have to feed them, give them a drink, and let them stay over a night. Okay, and that's another Gemara, that's the other part of the mitzvah, that you're able to spend the night. Why? Because the person can't fulfill the mitzvah of feeding and drinking and giving food and drink to their guests if they can't let them just sort of pass out after they eat. And so therefore a person should take note of themselves, that a person, when they have their house, should try to leave space for guests to stay. Okay? In order for someone to get use of that room as a guest. And a person should recognize that people need to come to have for these things when they're traveling. And the reason why this is important and necessary is that a person shouldn't be restricting themselves or feel too constricted in their own home to do this. So how do you do that if you have a small house? Okay, so if you can't have extra space for someone to stay, then really it becomes a public wheel thing, that the community should establish a bed and breakfast or a place for people to sleep. In my neighborhood, for example, they have a hachnasis orchim. It just becomes difficult with having people stay over at night. We're not going to deal with that right now, but having people stay over, spend the night, that's not easy. Okay, we'll just say that for sure. And this way, you absolve yourself from the statement of the verse by the Egla Rufa that Yedenu lo shafku es adam hazeh, that when you find the corpse, it's not our fault. Which is, this didn't happen when he come to us, that we left them going without any food, without any protection. The rabbis also further say in the Talmud that Yehonatan didn't properly say goodbye to David HaMelech. He should have brought him 2 loaves of bread. Okay, and so therefore, that's why we make a chavra of Hachnasis Orchim, says the Chavetz Chaim, the group of people who help make room for guests, that help to coordinate these mitzvahs. So that is the mitzvah of Hachnasas Orchim. We will talk about Bikur Cholim next week. Everyone have a wonderful day, and we will see everyone next time. Take care.